So I'll kick off today's event by introducing our host and moderator, Ayelet Fishbach. Ayelet is the Jeffrey Breckenridge Keller Professor of Behavioral Science and Marketing at the University of Chicago and the past president of the Society for the Study of Motivation and International Social Cognition Network. She is an expert on motivation and decision-making. Ayelet's groundbreaking research on human motivation has won her several international awards, including the Society of Experimental Social Psychology's Best Dissertation Award and the Career Trajectory Award, and the Fulbright Educational Foundation's Award. She joined the Chicago Booth faculty in 2002. And before I officially turn things over to her, please check out Ayelet's new book coming out in January 2022 titled Get It Done, Surprising Lessons from the Science of Motivation. And I'll be sharing a link in the chat in just a moment. So without further ado, Ayelet, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night. Great to have you here today. Today's program is going to feature 5 alums talking about stories from their career journeys. We gave our speakers some ideas for something that they could tell us about. We gave them examples such as, would you tell us a story about a time that you took risk in your career and whether it paid off? And then we kind of let them come up with their own stories, which goes to say that I have no idea what they're going to tell us about. I'm as curious as everybody else here. As we are all listening to those stories, what I encourage you to do is ask yourself, how do you relate to this story? How you perceive it? Do you enjoy it? Do you find some larger message? Can you relate to something that the speaker presented? And then we can have a discussion on how these stories touched you and how you can take these ideas to better tell your own stories. I'm also going to conclude our meeting here with a brief storytelling 101 exercise, which will also be delivered to you after the event. So let me immediately get to our first presenter. This is going to be Magdalena Centeno-Lopez, who's joining us from Paris, where it's already her weekend. And so we are very grateful that she took the time. Magdalena is a legal manager based in Europe, where she has developed a rich international and corporate law career. She earned her LLM from the University of Chicago Law School and a law degree from the University of Buenos Aires, where she also served as a certified translator. She can speak many languages. She's only going to use one of them in her story today. And Magdalena, to you.
Oh, hi, everyone. So I'm going to share a story with you. I hope I will not bore you, but in any case, I'm sure you will relate. So it all started on a very hot day sometime in June, and I woke up with a question in my mind. It was, how do you put on the front fog lights? Yes, my mind was not playing tricks on me. It was just preparing me for the event of the day, which was passing my practical driving exam in the outskirts of Paris. For those who do not know, passing the exam in Paris is particularly difficult. And I was also in a very 7-month pregnant state. So the idea was you pick up the person and your teacher from the place where you took your driving lessons. So 3 hours later, I was driving my teacher, Jean-Paul, and my fellow driving victims into the examination place. And we were taking turns to drive the car, like the last practice at the last minute. And before handing over the steering wheel to Jean-Paul, I said, Jean-Paul, please, I need you to show me on this car, which was not the same car as we had been practicing, how to put on the front fog lights. So Jean-Paul kindly showed me. So he said, it's here, click, click, fine, you're good, you said. So an hour later, it was my turn. And the particular thing was that you had to drive the examiner on the passenger seat and I had Jean-Paul sitting in the rear seat, so I could definitely see his face in the rear view mirror. So it started well by my almost driving into a bus lane. And when I say almost, I mean I stopped just in time to let my examination continue. So on it went for another 30 minutes with the examiner requesting me to park in every known position known to Earth, the car here to this side or to this other side. And there's, in the practical exam, there's one last theoretical question. So the examiner said, okay, we're gonna park here in yet another position and tell me what the mileage of the car is, or the kilometers for those in the other system. So it was, so I had to take the two last digits. So he opened his examination manual, he took the two last digits, and therein came the question. How do you put on the front fog lights? I heard him say. So Jean-Paul was smiling with a wide smile, and I was showing the monitor how to put on the front fog lights. So yes, listening to your gut can definitely help you get a driver's license, but it can most definitely help you in your career. You're gonna say how, when, so you need to listen to your gut, when to speak up, when to avoid hiring the wrong person. It's really something you can feel, or even when to make a career move or career change. So please listen to your gut and learn how to put on the front fog lights to drive your career wherever you want.
Thank you so much. I so much enjoy listening to your story. The way it touched me is that I'm a professor. I usually do well on tests, and the one test that I failed, like ever, like in my life, was my driving license test. I actually failed it twice, and so great story. One follow-up question, and we'll get more questions later. We ask you as such an accomplished individual to tell us a story, and you choose a story that is so far from the area in which you build your name and your career. What made you go there?
It was something that talked to everyone. Everybody has been on a test. If I talked about a contract I reviewed or a negotiation, even your gut helps you in negotiations, but it is different to tell it. It had to be a message that rang a bell to everyone. So that's why I chose that one. Plus, for me, it was a particular experience to this front fog lights. I will never forget that in my life. And I'm sure that most people listening, maybe they will not forget the lights. Maybe they will not remember the lights, but they will remember, listen to your gut.
All right, thank you. We'll have more questions soon, so stay with us. And if anybody ever needs advice on how to fix their car, then Magdalena is your person, or not really. Let me move to Sarah. Sarah Toussaint, are you there? Yes. Sarah Toussaint is currently oversees Wells Fargo's Major League Soccer and Mexican national team sponsorships. Her background is in sports business. She was named the Sports Business Journal 2018 class of Game Changers. She was also named a co-owner of the North Carolina College of the National Women's Soccer League. So she was raised in the South Side of Chicago, earned a BA in Public Policy from the University of Chicago and MBA from NYU. Currently on our alumni board. And yes, Sarah, to you. I'm curious.
Thank you. Right, so my story, the origin story is important, which is, and you said it. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and it's this neighborhood called La Vita, or Little Village. It's a Mexican neighborhood in Chicago. I am not Mexican. I'm Puerto Rican and Palestinian, but I grew up in this Mexican neighborhood. I think it's one of the coolest neighborhoods in Chicago, and I don't think enough people really make it out there, but it becomes important to my story. So a pivotal moment in my career was probably in my mid-20s. I was working at Major League Baseball. I grew up playing softball. I loved playing the sport. I watched the White Sox. I watched the Cubs. and I got a job at Major League Baseball. I'm thinking dream job, amazing. I hated it from the very first day. It was not a good cultural fit. I did not, I got along with everybody, but nobody really seemed to engage with me. Nobody really seemed invested in my growth. And I said, oh my God, I got to get out of here. And so I'd spent probably a good year trying to find a new role. And it finally happened. It was through graduate school and meeting a classmate who was working at Major League Soccer. And so I had an interview with the hiring manager at Major League Soccer. He was looking at my resume. I could tell because he immediately went to, oh, I see you went to the University of Chicago. I said, yeah, I did. He's like, great school. And my response was, oh, you heard of it? Because at that time, you either got confused for UIC or people just weren't aware of just how rigorous and elite it was, right? So of course I'm just like, oh my God, he's heard of it. And so that was really flattering. And he says, are you from Chicago? And I said, yeah, I'm from Chicago. And he's like, where? And I'm like, why does he want to know where in Chicago I'm from? And it turns out he was a marketing manager for the Chicago Fire, which is a local MLS team. And I said, well, I'm from Little Village. And he just, it's over the phone, but I could hear his voice light up. He's like, oh my God. He's like, you're exactly what we need. We need Mexicans to work at Major League Soccer. And I said, wait, I'm not Mexican. And he's like, you're the closest thing to a Mexican we're going to have here. And it was really interesting that where I came from was so important to this role because Major League Soccer was really trying to connect with the Hispanic community, which is primarily made up in the US of Mexican-American immigrants. And so it was that moment where I thought, like, who I am and where I come from is really important. And I want to be at places that are going to value that. And I got the job. And it was like my first dream job out of college. And so I guess the moral of the story was, you know, kind of like own who you are, where you come from. It's going to be an asset to somebody somewhere. And so never lose sight of that and kind of just don't kind of forget where you came from. And so I think that phone call really made me just feel like I don't need to be anybody besides who I am, right? I don't need to fit into the old boys club. I can just be me, Sarah from La Vita. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this story. You are talking about identity and how part of who you are is where you grew up with. And I really like the tension. Like the question that came through my mind is, well, sir, are you Mexican? You started your story by saying, no, I'm not Mexican. And then you said, well, I got a job as the almost Mexican person. How did that make you feel?
You know, I still, to this day, so my current job at Wells Fargo it's kind of come full circle now that I'm on the brand side working on sponsorships, right? All the corporate signage that you see in sports spaces, that's what I do around Major League Soccer in Mexico. And I have to remind people that I'm not Mexican. But the thing is, the way I speak when I go to Puerto Rico, my family always say, you speak like a Mexican. My expressions are like that. The music I listen to, but I am very clear to say, like, I am, you know, Puerto Rican and Palestinian, but I certainly, culturally, I feel very connected to Mexico. And it's just been really special to see how just, you know, the neighborhood that I grew up in, which people really, quite frankly, as cool as it is, do try to leave, right? It's economically, you know, low and you know, folks are struggling financially, but it wound up being a tremendous asset. And so that always just kind of grounds me. And anyhow, I am not the best storyteller, so I can keep on rambling with these questions. So I'll just wrap up there.
Yeah, well, you just gave a great story. So I will disagree with your last statement, but very much enjoyed your story. Anyways, we need to move on, so we have time for your questions and comments. And let me see, Lucia, are you there? Ready? Yes. Lucia Stanfield is joining us next. She has worked as the U.S. Environmental Protections Agency's Chicago office since 2000, providing GIS and presentation support for staff in the Land, Chemical, and Development Division. She is the co-lead for the Disaster Debris Recovery Tool, a member of the original GIC Emergency Response Team, the Illinois GIC Association. She has done a lot. Okay, so I am going to summarize here. Lucy's also geo-mentoring the K-12 schools. She received her bachelor's in geography and anthropology from U Chicago, and an MA from the University of Arizona. Lots of accomplishments on her vida, and Lucy, tell us your story.
Thanks, Islet. I'm Lucy. I'm so happy to join all of you today, and this was a fun challenge to not be part of a traditional career panel and just share a really cool story. And so I chose one. I guess I would say it falls under a pivotal moment in my career, and it's really when I met an inspirational person. I make maps for a living. I do GIS, it's Geographic Information Systems. I'm a geographer, which is not a career or a field of study. A lot of people may not know that you can get paid to make maps, and they can be drawn maps or on computer. But so as part of that, I work with computers a lot, but I'm at the EPA. So we work with scientists, we work with policy folks, we work with community groups, and usually on a year or every other year basis, I get to go to different conferences, and one of them is an international conference. It's out in San Diego. It's always the week before Comic-Con, which is a whole nother story of, no, I've never been, and yeah, I would like to stay after my geeky map conference to go to Comic-Con. But I'm at the conference one year, and there's 18,000 people there. And if you're at conferences, there's poster sessions, and poster sessions are usually a fun way to see people, to learn about different projects. But this one particular year, I got to meet one of my, a living legend who I would consider, just one of my main inspirations for my career. As I'm rounding one of the corners with all the map posters, it's this giant room of 500 posters. And it's not just a poster. If you're a person that likes maps, you're going to look at these maps over, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We have people that don't go anywhere else in San Diego, and they just study all of these maps. But I turn the corner, and standing there with her groups, her community organizations maps on the wall is Dolores Huerta. And she is the co-founder of the United Farm Workers, or one of the groups that led to the United Farm Workers. She's a living legend. She's a civil rights activist. I couldn't believe it. So I took a breath, and I definitely thought, there's no way I'm not going to go take a selfie with her, introduce myself, tell her how much I love, the maps. Because there's all kinds of people at this conference. Like I said, there's government folks, there's scientists, there's tech geeky people, there's firemen who have maps on their trucks and GPS and everything, and drones. And so it's just off the wall tech. But this person, this woman, this activist standing right in front of me was just a super pivotal moment to be able to talk to her, to just engage with her. And I guess I would summarize, round stuff. It's just like, don't pass up those moments to meet the people that inspire you.
Thank you. One thing that I love about your story is that it ends at the beginning. Okay, like we don't know anything about the conversation. Okay, the entire story is about seeing her there and recognizing that you have a personal hero and thinking that I'm not going to miss this opportunity. How did the conversation go?
Well, you're imagining, she's not like on her way to a meeting or something. She's in a exhibit hall chatting with people. So I knew I had a few minutes, but just wanted to share with her. Her team had presented their maps. They're making maps for their community. And some of the maps I get to make it work are for the benefit of community. So I just shared that, and it was really just special time, and she was gracious and took a selfie. And I am not a good selfie taker, so I'm like, this better be a really good selfie. I'm gonna Photoshop it if it's not. So
I'm with you. I always hesitate whether to ask for a selfie, and then like a month later, I beat myself for not asking. So if you're like me, ask for the selfie.
I think it's the business card of today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So more questions later. Stick around. Beatrice, are you there? Can you join us?
Yes, I am.
Where are you actually?
I'm in my courtyard in Arizona.
It looks beautiful there.
Oh, it is.
So, well, it's like 20-something degrees here. Happy to have Beatrice Randon joining us. She is the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for the Office of Education, Outreach, and Student Services at Arizona State University. She holds a master's in public policy from the University of Chicago and a JD from Loyola University of Chicago Law School. She was appointed commissioner for the President's Commission on Education Excellence for Hispanic Americans. What else? Super accomplished, born and raised in El Paso, Texas, first generation college student, graduated from the University of Arizona, second generation Mexican American, and she plays the saxophone. So to you.
Thank you, Ayelet. And it's an honor to be here with the other panelists and to be engaged in community with a University of Chicago alum. So manifesting, that's something I think about a lot. And, manifesting what we want is a really curious journey. We've all heard of vision boards, affirmations, credentials, faith, believing. These are all sort of tactics and strategies and tools that are increasingly becoming more mainstream and relative to people's awareness and knowledge about them. But how many of you have experienced manifesting something you wanted using one of these strategies? Or even better stated, how many of you in hindsight realized that you manifested something that you didn't know you needed? I grew up in a humble and modest home, living first with my grandparents, mother, sister, and at least a dozen other relatives at any point in time in a 1,200 square foot home with one bathroom. Think about that. Who on this Zoom has ever fallen asleep waiting for the bathroom to free up? Eventually, I moved at the age of 10 years old to a home on a farm when my mom married my dad. Lots of animals, rodents, critters, but a great way to grow up. The house was a very old fixer-upper. Has anyone ever had to hold the bathroom door with their foot to keep people from walking in while using the bathroom at the same time? That's a talent. Anyone here ever experienced evaporative cooling in the middle of a 100-degree day? It cools about as effectively as someone blowing air in your face in the middle of the desert. Has anyone ever hung clothes to dry while trying to keep the goats away who are trying to take down the clothes at the same time? It's true what they say, goats will eat anything, and I mean anything. So what do these things have to do with manifesting? These experiences shaped who I am, but also subconsciously shaped what I wanted to manifest. My own bathroom, a doorknob with a lock on it, a dryer, but so much more than that. It instilled in me a desire to manifest a pathway through education that would provide endless opportunities in my life, forever changing not just the trajectory of my life, but the generations to come. My dad had an 8th grade education and my mom a high school degree. Education was instilled in me from the start, but the opportunity became real when I attended kindergarten at the University of Texas at El Paso for one semester as part of an early childhood program that was there. My mom couldn't afford to have me continue on to a second semester, but I found myself in awe of the campus and the older students, and in that moment decided I wanted to be one of them. My grandfather, who earned his citizenship fighting in World War II, played saxophone. And as a result, I played his saxophone when it came time for me to pick an instrument in 6th grade. That was a pivotal moment that helped me manifest my creative education and career ambitions, many of which weren't even formulated yet. 15-year-old me was fortunate enough to have raised enough money to travel with our high school marching band from El Paso, Texas, thousands of miles through Oklahoma and the Midwest. Music expanded my world outside of El Paso and ultimately paid for my college education with a full music scholarship. Music helped me supplement my income to pay for grad school and law school while I was in Chicago, while feeding my spiritual and creative soul, playing gigs all over the Midwest and even in Mexico on New Year's Eve. All the while, my day gig at the Chicago Public Schools was satiating my intellectual curiosity about everything education and my desire to make a difference in the lives of others. During my late 20s and early 30s, I felt I had arrived and manifested all that I desired. And then the life I knew and had carefully curated in Chicago fell apart when my first marriage did not work out. This led me to move back to the Southwest, 2,000 miles away, with my 2-month-old and 13-year-old in 2007. From my time in Chicago, I knew I wanted to expand my experience to higher education, a pathway that had made a huge difference in my own life. That job in Tucson, Arizona, led me to a mentor, which led me to a short career in healthcare and fundraising, which ultimately led me to working for the university here in Tempe, Arizona State, as the founding CEO of their fledgling charter school enterprise at the time. I had experience both on the academic and operational sides of education administration, but I had not been a school operator. I believed that I could make a difference and took a leap of faith that I could figure the rest out, and ultimately manifested a high-performing, highly impactful, and innovative school enterprise. Currently, as the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, I've moved on from running schools to raising resources and cultivating partnerships that enabled us to scale our reach, access, and student service work to have greater impact. Full circle, what I didn't know as a kindergartner, as a high school freshman on that charter bus that left me in awe as it made its way through the city of Chicago, its skyscrapers and architecture, is that I would manifest my dream of a college education. I would manifest my desire to live and work in Chicago 10 years later from that point that I was on that charter bus. And I would manifest my desire to journey my way back to the Southwest, ultimately working in higher education, working to make a positive impact for students and the communities that we serve. And oh yeah, I also manifested the house that I live in today. And yes, I have my own bathroom, I have electric air, and I have a clothes dryer.
Thank you so much, Beatriz. As another first generation in college, I hear you. I love your story. I love that you were able to put a big summary of things that you did in your life into this just a few minutes descriptions. And I also love that you were willing to touch these difficult low points in life and with a smile. And so just my personal question, I often hesitate to go there, just fearing that that I will be too emotional, that maybe I don't want to share my low point. How do you do this? And with a smile, and how do you do this?
I think what experience has taught me is that, low points when you're going through them feel very singular and like you're the only one experiencing them. But there's a lot of power in sharing those low points because you realize that lots of other people are experiencing the same. And furthermore, you realize that you almost learn more from the low points than you do from the high points in life. And so it's really important to also share how those low points sort of led to more positive outcomes and a more fulfilled and rewarding life.
Yeah, I completely agree. I am not supposed to talk about my research today, but I would say that, I would talk about my research just for a brief moment and say that I do study what people learn from low points and what people learn from negative experiences, which is surprisingly often too little. And it's often easier to learn from other people's low points. So I completely agree with you that when you share it with us, we learn. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, stick around. We are with Luke. Luke, you are our last but not least storyteller. And I enjoyed reading your bio, because it starts with the fact that you have written one haiku over the last 8 years, or at least that it took you 8 years to write that haiku. So Luke is the author. Is that someone writes a haiku is an author, the author of the haiku? He also has some other accomplishments that you would like to know about. It was awarded the Young Alum Service Award in 2014, and is currently a member of the UChicago Alumni Board. He worked at Google for the past 10 years in the company's global business operation, where he received the Breakthrough Innovation Award for his work. He also a 3-time Moth Story Slam champion. His stories have been featured on the Moth podcast and other storytelling organizations. And I hesitate whether to mention it now or to ask about it later. Well, I will just mention it now, but you can answer later, Luke. You met your wife at a party on 57th and Kimball, which is like just a few houses away from my house. So I'm very curious about that, but maybe your story first. To you.
Thank you, Ayelet. Yes, so I'm actually going to start right there. So I'm at a party. This is my spring quarter of my second year at college at the University of Chicago. I'm at this party at 57th and Kimbark, and I'm feeling super awkward and out of place. I don't know that many people at this party, but I find myself talking to this woman she was a fourth year, I was a second year, and so I'm just sort of like struggling to come up with an interesting topic of discussion to keep her engaged. It comes up in the conversation that she's from St. Louis. And the most recent thing I'd learned at the time about St. Louis was that it was the most violent large city in the entire country. I was studying geography at the time, and so sort of like urban structure and process and stats were like really interesting to me. So I thought I was sharing this like really interesting fact that we could just talk about her hometown. I'm from Cleveland, by the way, too, which is like number 3 on the list. So by no means am I trying to make any statement about St. Louis, but she takes it as I'm sort of talking trash about her hometown. And so her reaction to this is she rears back and she punches me right in the nose, which when you think about it is kind of another data point for St. Louis being a violent place. It wasn't a super hard punch, but it hit me right in the part of the nose where it's, you know, when you get hit and you immediately tear up. So I'm at this party where I'm already feeling awkward and out of place, and now it looks like I'm crying in the middle of this party because this woman has just punched me, and she goes off to like, you know, some other corner of the party, leaving me there like wiping tears away from my face. And you know, you can't leave the party just crying, right? So I'm trying to play it as cool as possible as one can and sort of like stick it out for a little bit longer. Anyway, the party sort of carries on. It gets to the point of the night where the UCPD show up, not to arrest anybody, but to say, you know, turn the music off, everybody go to bed, go home kind of thing. You know, people still felt the need to go hide in various places throughout the apartment. So it's, you know, classic places, hallway closet, behind the shower curtain. I see the woman I was talking to earlier, Lily. She goes into the kitchen, and it's one of these old Hyde Park apartments where under the sink, instead of having a cupboard, it was just a curtain. So she crouches down like underneath the sink, closes the curtain behind her. I go over there, I peel open the curtain. She has a drink in her hand, and I tell her, Lily, I'm sorry, but the police are here, and I'm going to have to turn you in for assaulting me earlier tonight. And her reaction to this is she takes the drink in her hand and she splashes it right in my face. So for literally the second time in the same night, it looks like I'm just openly weeping as a result of something that she has done to me. That was 2007. 7 years later, we married. And that's how I met my wife at a party on 57th and Kimbark. So why am I telling you the story, you know, the sort of personal story about the origin of my marriage and relationship with my now wife, and we have, you know, 2 kids and 1 on the way. I believe that personal storytelling is a superpower that each and every one of you have simply because you're a human living in this world. Because you're a human living in this world, you have a story to tell. You have a story that matters. I've started incorporating personal storytelling into my work at Google over the past couple of years, and I've never seen more success from a client perspective, being able to communicate ideas in a really meaningful way, from a coaching perspective, how to develop myself and develop others based off of framing things with a personal story. And I now give workshops to fellow colleagues at Google about how they can incorporate personal storytelling into their day-to-day work to have that kind of impact. And I did, thinking about why does this work? When we are in this sort of teller-listener relationship, and before I started incorporating personal storytelling, when I was talking with clients, I'd show slides and data on slides and whatnot. It was all meaningful data, and it was thoughtful and well put together. At least, I thought. But when you're sharing that kind of information with an audience, the part of the brain that is actually being lit up in that person is just the part of their brain that says, I'm hearing what you're saying. The moment you actually take that information and weave it into a story, it is actually lights up a deeper part of the brain that is more connected to emotion. And it literally, that connection through, and the story is the way you actually deliver that emotion. So it's literally, if you are able to tell a story, it is your way where you can literally take whatever that is that you're trying to communicate it and implant it in the brain of another person by wrapping it in a story. So, and the amazing thing here too is if you root it in personal storytelling, only you can tell your story. So it is the one truly unique thing that you could bring to the table in any form of communication that you have. So that's what I'll leave you with here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all.
Thank you. You already made a case for why we do this, okay? Why we listen to these stories and why we want to tell our own stories. So I have two quick questions before I open it. My very first, very quick question is, do you think that if we asked Lily, she would tell a similar story, or is her version completely different?
She would definitely tell a very similar story, but she would try to make you believe that that's in fact, sort of really dissing St. Louis, which I swear I was not. And she's a very lovely person, but just be careful of what you say about St. Louis around her.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Note taken. And then when you are trying to be more strategic with your story, when you're trying to connect to a client, or to use it in a presentation, is it important that it's a personal story? Did you find out that this does a better job than just telling a story about something?
Yeah, so I find that telling a personal story is really important because it's you and no one else can be you. And so if you have the ability to incorporate that personal story, you will stand out because truly no one else can be you. You can sort of incorporate other stories, and I would say that that's probably better than not incorporating a story at all. But if there's a way where you can root it in yourself and your own experience, because you as an individual are truly unique, you're going to stand out to whoever the audience is that you're communicating to, because they will see and acknowledge that uniqueness in you.
Yeah, I would very much relate to this. I would add that a few times in my life when I was preparing to make an important presentation, and I know that it's important that you are personable and maybe a little bit funny, and my colleagues were suggesting a joke that I could use, and my response was always that I can imagine myself going on stage and telling your joke.
Right.
If it's my joke, I can, but it's your joke. So I completely agree. Oh, okay. Well, I believe that I'm not the only person who has the right to ask questions here. So let's open the stage and hear from other people. How do we do it, Dexter? They raise their hand. It's in the chat. How do we do it?
Yeah, I have already some great questions lined up. So let's see. One comes from Sam. she's asking, for any of the storytellers, when you decided to tell your story with this group, where did you start? How did you comb through all of your experiences to hone in on just one moment or one theme? And then she adds, it seems like an intimidating task. So any wisdom you can share?
I'll jump. So I raised my hand to volunteer for anything for the most part Chicago asked me to do. So I didn't really know. And then when they said, okay, we want you to tell a story, I was like, oh no, what am I going to talk about? And I really am a terrible storyteller. But this one in particular was really, so I will say there were some prompts, and the prompt that stuck out was, what was a pivotal moment in your career? And I think about that story I just told you, because it was the moment where I felt like I didn't have to not be me. Right. And as I was telling the story, you couldn't tell, but my eyes were watering because it was such a like personal, like growth moment, to be able to be like, okay with who you are when in this corporate world. Like, I'm already getting emotional right now. Like in this corporate world, like, you know, it's, you know, we've been talking about D&I a lot, but it's like, you know, I'm like this 5'2" curly hair Latina. Right. And I'm usually pretty outgoing and bubbly, and I don't fit, you know, what Wall Street looks like or what a law firm looks like, or so I thought, right? Or what corporate America looks like. And so I think to feel like seen and valued for that is like really special. And so it came like instantly as soon as I saw that prompt.
Maybe another one?
Yeah, I'll add to what Sarah just shared, in that, I mean, I agree with everything she said. I mean, the prompts were helpful, and yeah, it was quite the task. I was similarly caught off guard. I didn't realize it was a storytelling exercise. So I was like, oh man. And I also, I think, you know, fairly seasoned, you know, 25 plus years of a career. So there was a lot to kind of think about, but in the end, you know, sometimes I just find myself in a complete state of awe. Like, I can't believe that everything that's happened in my life has happened in my life. And so that's kind of what led me to this sort of central theme of manifesting it, and are really that you have a lot more power than you think, whether you're being intentional or conscious of it, or it's in your subconscious. And so I really just sort of zeroed in on that, and then thought about moments in my life that happened that I couldn't have even predicted were going to happen. And thought that, you know, it was a good thing to share, because whether you're at a low point or a high point, to the earlier conversation, it all has meaning, and it all ultimately really can lead to manifesting, you know, what you want. So that was kind of the approach I took.
Nice. I love this. Dexter, I'm going to let you, I don't see the questions. I mean,
yeah, we have actually, yeah, we have another one coming in from Deneen. So yeah, storytelling involves lots of trust, trusting that the audience is with you and will be able to connect to your connections. How do you build that confidence so that you can share your stories more broadly, especially as you progress in your career? Luke, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that one. And I think the ability to trust your audience is sort of a part of the deal with storytelling, because it's the way that brains work, right? So if you're telling a story, that inevitably is going to be something that resonates with the audience that you're talking to. And that's why it's such an amazing superpower that you have. It's like literally, there's research that shows, unless the person that you're communicating to, I'm not trying to make light of this or make this a joke, but it's like, unless the person that you're communicating to is a sociopath, your storytelling resonates with that person. So it's literally this, and not to say there aren't a lot of sociopaths that you might encounter in the business world, but like most of the time, like just because of how brains work, storytelling is this secret power that you have that can really resonate with whoever the audience is that you're speaking to. And that's true if it's a personal story that you're telling at a cocktail hour. It's true if you're telling a story to colleagues. It's true if you're telling a story to a client or anywhere else in your career. So it's a sort of like multi-use ability to really share that.
So I have
I'd
a
like
follow-up.
to add, oh.
Yeah, Lucy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what Luke said. I know when you're at a meeting at work, you're at a conference with people you know and some you don't. You're at any place where information is going to be shared. Maybe not hanging out with friends at a bar. You know those people very well. But for your career, it's about knowing your audience if you're presenting. But I would just have to say, anytime, any conference, any meeting I've ever gone to, even if I know the topic, I don't know anything about the topic, my brain literally turns a switch when I hear them say, and then this thing went wrong. When there's someone sharing, you're telling, maybe you're giving a work presentation or anything, whatever it is, but if they have that confidence to share a failure, and maybe you wouldn't do this at a sales presentation or something, there's certain times you wouldn't share that, but my brain literally turns up the volume whenever I hear that, when someone says, okay, here's this information or this data or maps, or this is how you use this software piece, and I tried it and it failed the first time. My attention immediately zooms into them, and I want to know more immediately. I don't know. I wanted to share that. It's maybe obvious, but that's way more interesting to me than just someone who can talk about what they do. And it's very, you want the personal, it doesn't have to be personal melty moments, but something, admitting failure is hard, and more people should do it.
Absolutely. By the way, when you ask people whether they prefer to share a story about success versus failure, the vast majority prefer to share a story of success. Very few people choose to share failure, and then you are right that for the audience, it's often much more interesting. I guess my follow-up question, because I heard in the question, some of your responses that it was a bit scary, okay, that it's not what you usually do, that you want to be helpful to the University of Chicago, and then we ask you these awkward things what's the fear, okay? What do you think might happen? Why people are afraid to tell stories?
There's so many good TED Talks out there, and I don't think I'm ever gonna be one of them. And so that's like the model for a good storyteller. And I'm like, I'm never doing a TED Talk. And so it's just that fear of being judged, right? In terms of how you speak. And as you go through in the workplace, right, you hear trainings about filler words and ums and and so I'm just hyper conscious of these things. So yeah, it's pretty much I know I'm not gonna be a TED Talk, and I shouldn't compare myself, but yeah, that's the fear.
Another thought on this front too is that, also Lucy mentioned it too, that if somebody is admitting failure or something like that that's really challenging, it makes for an amazing story. But it also, that aspect of vulnerability also is incredibly effective way of building trust again, with your audience and whoever you're speaking with. But if you're being vulnerable, that is inevitably something that's not easy by definition. The payoff though, one is, when I first started doing this, I would practice a lot. It would really take a lot of time to actually, sort of hear the words out in the air before I'd go present or something like that. So it takes a lot of work that way. And then it just becomes sort of second nature too. But then what I've also found too is, because it was my own personal storytelling that I'm bringing to the table in these scenarios, I would get way more energy from it too. So it's I would be so pumped about leading these conversations or leading these workshops by incorporating my personal storytelling. So it almost was this force, because it's hard, it was this forcing mechanism to, one, make me practice a lot more before I actually went into it. And then two, I just enjoyed it more when I actually got there too. So it is hard, particularly if you're sharing something that's vulnerable, but know that that vulnerability, it actually makes for an incredible story. And you're stronger for working out those muscles before you actually deliver that story.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you may be afraid of not bringing any value, not helping other people. You're there, you're telling your story. You're not just telling your story to tell the audience, yes, I did this, I did that. The idea is to try to help people or just send them some energy or even curiosity to start doing something new. I admit when I was contacted, I said, I've never done this. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid I will bore everyone. Maybe I did, but the idea is at the end of the day, we're going to try it, we're going to do it. Next time, we're going to do it in a different way or even another exercise, but we should still get something out of it. We learn, we continue, and maybe we discover things.
I wasn't so afraid of sharing. I think the older I get, the more I'm becoming like less conscious of that. And there's a lot of power in just putting stuff out there. I was more afraid of it being recorded. And I'm a very private person. So the fact that this is going to be out there really gave me pause.
My advice is to never listen to these recordings. Okay, just don't watch it. Dexter, do we have time for more questions?
We do, and this is a quick question, but Robin asked, just curious if the storytellers consider themselves introverts or extroverts, and if that affects their ability to tell their story. So hopefully a quick question.
Extrovert, but I hate public speaking.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the middle. I sort of gravitate both ways. I can turn it on when I need to, like, playing a festival in Chicago. And then, I can definitely go the other direction.
I'm the opposite of Sarah, where I'm an introvert, but I love public speaking.
It makes no sense, Luke.
I used to be very shy. I could definitely not speak in public. And I remember my first day at University of Chicago introduction week, they made me put a tag with my name and they say, go meet people. And I was like, what? So after some Chicago tagging exercises, I became more familiar with it. Now I really enjoy it. It came all the other way.
I'd say I'm like Beatrice, introvert, extrovert, depends on situation. I like public speaking, but I get the butterflies too, and they're right there. They're still there, but it's good.
I'm definitely an introvert, like most you Chicago professors. Dexter?
Well, wonderful. That was a good question to end on. So thank you for asking that. I think we just have a couple more minutes left of the program, and I know we've had great questions, and I'm feeling so inspired by all of the stories. I'm visualizing my driver's test, and I didn't have to figure out where the fog lights were, but I've also been in those funny party situations and moments in interviews where learning that your background really does benefit you. So thank you all for the wisdom that you've shared, your personal stories, doing this exercise, going on this journey. We really appreciated it all. Isla is sharing a Storytelling 101 handout, and I will pass the mic back over to you if you want to share just a quick rundown of what we've prepared. We'll also be sending this in a follow-up email in case you want this just for your own reference.
Yes, so let me quickly go over this one-page handout that hopefully will be useful for you. Just the very basics of storytelling. Know where you start, where you plan to end, and how not to lose your audience in the middle. Remember that you need to have emotions there. Your audience needs to feel you. Often our stories have some data, in particular in professional context, but without emotions, you are losing your audience. Make sure that your audience knows the point. And what was nice in all the examples that we saw today is that they ended with, this is the lesson that you should take from it. Let's not leave it in the air. Let's make sure that you know that the takeaway. How to build your story, focus on the impression that you want to leave on the audience. Do you want them to process some materials? Do you want them to connect to you as a person? How do you want to impress them? What do you want to tell them? Write down your story and practice. The more times you tell your story, the more you know where you're going with it, the better you are. And to the bottom part of this handout, you don't need to be an expert writer or an expert marketer. You need to be a person. You need to be a person who has their own life story, who has their own experiences. And when you are willing to use these experiences to tell people something that is about yourself, that's coming from yourself, they can relate to it. Also keep in mind, and we heard it from a few of our panelists, that when you are willing to connect to low points, to difficult points, to negative experiences that you have, your audience is often even more attentive. They pay attention. They care about you. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable in telling your story. I will just summarize here by once again expressing my gratitude to this amazing group of panelists. That was one of my best events, alum events. We should do more of this, and I owe you a drink, the five of you. So when you're in Chicago, come see me. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dexter, for organizing the event. Thanks everyone who chose spend their lunchtime with us, and I hope to stay connected to you.
Yes, and I just want to echo your thanks, Ayelet, and everyone. This has been such a wonderful experience. So thank you all for taking your lunch hour. To our storytellers, thank you so much again for your time and your energy and your vulnerability, for answering all of our many questions. Before we go, I do just want to leave one more link in the chat, actually two links. Again, a reminder, Ayelet's book is coming out early 2022. So if you're already building that New Year's resolution reading list, I think this is one that you're going to want on that. And then lastly, I'm also sharing a link for a brief survey. We love hearing from everyone who attends Career Month, what you thought of the month and all of our programming, or just this specific session. So please go ahead, take our survey, let us know what you thought. Next week, while we are officially closed for our live programs, we do have our Thank a Mentor campaign coming up. So keep checking out alumniandfriends.uchicago.edu for even more programming and ways that you can participate in Career Month. And we hope to see you next time around. Thank you all again, and have a great day. Bye.